As a parent, I have noted with my kids as they grow up, I've had different stages of things I allowed them to do or allowed them to experience. And when they got to a certain point, when they could recognize that their siblings who were older than them were being treated differently, they might say to me, "Hey, Dad, that's not fair. Why do they get to do that and I don't?" And what that amounted to was an opportunity for me, again, to explain that things are handled differently and looked at differently. But it didn't mean necessarily that I changed the scales. I just explained to them how it broadened for them. In other words, when we talk about life, sometimes what we end up dealing with is that we come across with this idea of, well, that's not fair. But then we wonder, well, is it or is it not? Or are the measurements wrong? Sometimes in life, what we have are people that love to just abuse other people. They love to reduce other people down to what they can manage and what they feel like is justifiable. And so they change the measure. And so they might judge someone a little bit differently than they would for someone else, just based on their own sort of faulted scales. In Proverbs chapter 20, it says, differing weights and differing measures, the Lord detests them both. In Proverbs chapter 20, verse 14, it's no good, says the buyer, then goes off and boasts about the purchase. But Proverbs chapter 20, verse 12, probably explains why the Lord hates dishonest scales. It says, ears that hear and eyes that see, the Lord has made them both. You see, the big challenge sometimes with the way that we treat one another and the things that we do is that we forget that our interaction with one another, those who follow after Christ acknowledge that every person is made in the image of God. So when the proverb author says, ears that hear and eyes that see, the Lord has made them both, the argument is to say that whoever you deal with, God has handcrafted them. That's why the Lord hates differing scales or measurements. That's why the Lord hates injustice. That's why the Lord is opposed to racism. That's why the Lord hates gender issues that result in women being displaced because they're women or men being disregarded because they're men. God hates all of those scales because we were all made in the image of God, and that our design is to weigh out life based on His measurements. See, at the end of the day, how you and I treat each other is actually saying more about what we think about God than it is about other people. So something to remember today as you consider the Lord hates dishonest scales. Why? Because dishonest scales creates a space where the image of God is ultimately worked against. God bless you. Go in peace.